The first thing I did after coming back to life was force my billionaire parents to choose me, their biological son, or Dorian, the adopted boy they had loved more than me for 18 years. Today, one of us leaves this house, I said. You decide who. The entire living room went silent. My father, Reginald, stared at me as if I had lost my mind. My mother, Cordelia, immediately pulled Dorian closer to her, and my sisters looked at me with the same disgust I remembered from my previous life. Nothing had changed, except me. Last time, I had spent years begging these people to accept me. I was their real son, but they had abandoned me in the countryside because some fortune teller claimed my birth sign conflicted with Dorian's. While he grew up surrounded by luxury, I learned how to fight stray dogs for food. When I finally returned home, I thought my suffering was over. I was wrong. They gave Dorian everything. I got scraps. And in my previous life, even when I died after being abused by the woman they forced me to marry, nobody in this family mourned me. They took Dorian to a temple instead. So this time, I wanted nothing from them. Reginald slammed his palm against the table. Kaylin, who gave you the courage to speak like that? I smiled. Death. He obviously didn't understand. His face darkened. Then his hand shot toward me. I had seen that slap before. This time, I was ready. I grabbed Dorian by the shoulder and pulled. Smack. Reginald's palm landed directly across Dorian's face. Everyone froze. Dorian stared blankly ahead. Cordelia screamed, "Oh my God, Dorian!" She rushed forward and hugged him. My sisters Isolde and Genevieve immediately surrounded him. Dad, look what Kaylin did. He's insane. I almost laughed. Reginald had been the one who slapped him. Yet somehow I was still the villain. Reginald pointed toward the door. You ungrateful brat. Do you really think I won't throw you out? Perfect. I reached inside my jacket. Then I dropped 2 documents onto the table. Sign. Genevieve frowned. What is this? A family severance agreement. She laughed. You're trying to scare us with this. A document like that has no legal force. I know. I lifted the first page. There was another document underneath. Genevieve's smile disappeared. I tapped it with one finger. That's why I also prepared a voluntary inheritance waiver. Silence. Even Dorian stopped pretending to be hurt. The Tang family controlled assets worth billions. Anyone else would have fought to inherit them. I was giving them up voluntarily. I don't want your money, I said. I don't want your company. I don't want this house. I looked directly at Dorian. And I definitely don't want his place. For 1 second, joy flashed across his face. There it was. That was the real Dorian. Reginald grabbed the pen. You think you can survive without this family? I already have. His hand stopped. I smiled. You just never noticed. Cordelia suddenly grabbed his wrist. Reginald. Wait, Kaylin is still our biological son. I watched them exchange a quick look. And I understood immediately. They weren't reluctant because they loved me. They still needed me. In 1 month, I would turn 18, and they planned to use me in a business marriage. I was still valuable, just not as a son. So I turned toward Dorian. Well, you heard Mom. I pointed toward the door. Looks like they chose me. Dorian's face stiffened. If that's what Mom and Dad want. He lowered his head. Then I'll leave. No. Isolde rushed forward. If Dorian leaves, I leave too. Genevieve nodded. Same here. I watched them stand protectively beside him. 3 siblings united against the outsider. Except I was the only one actually related to them. Reginald finally snapped. Kaylin, stop dreaming. You think we would throw Dorian away for someone like you? He signed. Cordelia hesitated. Then she signed too. I picked up the documents. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt free. Thank you. I went upstairs, grabbed the backpack I had packed days ago, and headed for the front door. I was almost outside when Isolde grabbed my arm. Wait, I looked back. She narrowed her eyes. What did you steal? I laughed. I had just abandoned billions in inheritance, and they still thought I wanted their garbage. Call the police if something's missing. Reginald's voice came from behind me. Search him. 2 bodyguards rushed forward. They grabbed my backpack. I held on. After several minutes of struggling, the old fabric finally ripped apart. Everything I owned spilled across the marble floor. 2 worn school uniforms, a few exam papers, 2 cheap pens. That was it. Not jewelry, not cash, not a single thing belonging to the Tang family. I stared at my possessions scattered across the floor. So, nobody answered. Then Dorian smiled faintly. Maybe everyone misunderstood him. Besides, even if Kalen stole something, he probably wouldn't be stupid enough to keep it in his bag. I looked at him. He knew exactly what he was doing. In my previous life, I swallowed insults like that. Not anymore. I stepped forward and punched him square in the face. Dorian hit the floor. Kalen. I climbed on top of him and landed another punch. Then another. Years of humiliation exploded through my fists. The bodyguards finally dragged me away. Reginald stormed forward. His shoe slammed into my ribs. Once, twice, again. Pain tore through my chest. Cordelia rushed to Dorian. My sisters surrounded him. Nobody looked at me. Only Valeria, my eldest sister, finally spoke. Dad, enough. Reginald stopped. Throw him out. The guards released me. I wiped blood from the corner of my mouth and looked at Dorian. Then I looked at my father. You should protect him carefully. Reginald. He frowned. What? I smiled. The son you love so much is going to give you one hell of a surprise someday. For the first time, Valeria looked at Dorian differently. But I didn't explain. Not yet. I picked up what remained of my backpack and walked out. By 10 that night, I was alone, bleeding, with nowhere to sleep. My own family had thrown me into the street. Then my phone rang. A girl I hadn't heard from in almost 3 years asked softly, Kalen, how are things at home? Are they treating you well? I looked down at the blood soaking my shirt. Yeah. I forced a laugh. They're treating me great. A passing old man suddenly stopped beside me. Young man, why is your face covered in blood? The girl on the phone immediately panicked. Kalen. I closed my eyes. Damn it. Kalen, where are you? I'm fine. You're lying. I said I'm. Pain suddenly stabbed through my ribs. My knees almost gave out. Hours later, I managed to reach a cheap motel, but the pain kept getting worse. Near midnight, my phone rang again. Kalen, the girl said urgently. Grandpa, Grandma, and I are already in the city. Tell me where you are. My vision blurred. I tried to answer. I'm at. My fingers went numb. The Ace Hang Motel. Then the phone slipped from my hand. The room disappeared into darkness. And for the second time in my life, I wondered whether I was about to die because of that family. When I opened my eyes again, the first thing I saw wasn't my mother. It wasn't my father. And it definitely wasn't one of my sisters. It was Era. She was standing beside the hospital window, arranging a bouquet of pale pink flowers. For a few seconds, I just stared at her. 3 years. That was how long it had been since I'd seen her. The little girl I remembered had grown up. But the moment she noticed my eyes were open, the same familiar smile appeared. Kalen. She dropped the flowers and rushed to my bedside. You're awake. Are you hurting? Do you want water? Should I call the doctor? I smiled weakly. Maybe start with the water. She immediately nodded. Yes, right, water. Before she could pour it, the hospital door opened. Grandpa Archie and Grandma Tilly walked in carrying several food containers. The moment Grandma saw me sitting up, her face lit up. Oh, thank God. She hurried over. Does your chest still hurt? A little, a little. Era crossed her arms. The doctor said you had bruised ribs and internal swelling. You passed out from the pain. I looked away. So technically, a little isn't a lie. Kalen. The 3 of them said my name at the same time. I surrendered. Fine. It hurts. Grandpa Archie pulled up a chair. That's better. Grandma opened one of the containers. The smell hit me immediately. Pork and glass noodle buns. My favorite. She handed me one. I still remember when you were 12. You ate 6 of these in one sitting. Grandpa laughed. We thought we were going to have to roll you home. I took the bun with both hands. Something tightened in my throat. These people weren't related to me. Yet after one phone call, they had driven through the middle of the night to find me. Meanwhile, my actual parents had thrown me bleeding onto the street. I took a bite. For some reason, it tasted better than anything I had eaten in the Tang mansion. Era noticed my eyes turning red. She pretended not to. Grandma did the same. Only Grandpa Archie stared directly at me. Kaylin. His voice became serious. Tell me what happened. I stopped chewing. All of it. I hesitated. Then I reached beneath the pillow and pulled out the 2 documents I had protected even while unconscious. The severance agreement and the inheritance waiver. I placed them in his hands. Grandpa Archie read them silently. Then I told him everything. The storage room, the accusations, the missing bracelet they blamed on me, the fact that I had worked part-time just to pay my own expenses, Dorian, my sisters, and finally, my father's shoes slamming into my ribs while everyone protected the boy I had punched. By the time I finished, Era was gripping the edge of the bed so hard her fingers had turned white. Grandma Tilly wiped her eyes. Grandpa Archie remained silent for several seconds. Then he placed the documents carefully on the bedside table. You did the right thing. I blinked. You're not going to tell me blood is thicker than water. Blood, he scoffed. If blood mattered to those people, you wouldn't be lying in this bed. Something inside me broke. Not painfully, more like a chain snapping. Grandpa slapped my shoulder carefully. You walked away from billions without hesitation. He smiled. That takes backbone. Grandma nodded. You're staying with us after you leave the hospital. I immediately shook my head. I can't impose on you. You can. I have money saved. Don't care. I can rent somewhere near school. Don't care. Grandma. She pointed at me. One more argument and I'm telling the nurse you refuse to eat. I shut my mouth. Era laughed. Smart choice. I looked at the 3 of them, people who had no obligation to love me, yet somehow, they were giving me everything I had begged my biological family for. Concern, trust, place to go. For 2 lifetimes, I had believed family was something you were born into. That morning, I finally understood. Family was whoever stayed when you had nothing left to offer. I quietly made myself a promise. If I ever became successful, I would repay every ounce of kindness these people had given me, 1,000 times over. Grandpa Archie leaned back. So what now? I looked at him. You've cut ties with the Tang family. What are you planning to do next? That answer was easy. Graduate. He raised an eyebrow. You're worried about school right now. The college entrance exams are in 2 months. And after everything you've been through, you think you can still compete. I pointed toward the school emblem on my jacket hanging beside the bed. Academy 32. Grandpa looked at it. I smiled. Top 3 school in the city. Era blinked. You never told us that. You never asked. And I'm in the advanced class. Grandpa Archie stared at me, then slowly smiled. So the Tang family didn't just throw away their biological son. His grin widened. They threw away a genius. I laughed. Let's not get carried away. But inside, I already knew what I wanted. College was only step 1. In my previous life, I had seen industries rise and fall. I remembered products that had created billionaires almost overnight. I remembered business trends years before they happened. And most importantly, I remembered games. Games that looked stupidly simple. Games people mocked before launch. Games that eventually made fortunes. This life, I wasn't going to waste that knowledge. I wasn't going to inherit the Tang Empire. I was going to build something bigger. While I was eating breakfast in the hospital, Valeria was standing inside the room I had slept in for the last 2 years. She hadn't slept all night. After leaving Dorian's VIP hospital room, Dad had ordered her to freeze every bank card attached to my name. Valeria contacted the finance department. The answer shocked her. There's nothing to freeze. What do you mean? Young Master Kalen receives no allowance. Valeria had gone silent. The finance director continued. He hasn't used Tang family money since returning. How does he pay for things? He works. That single word had apparently kept her awake all night. So she came home and opened my bedroom door. Except it wasn't a bedroom. It was a converted storage room. No window, no real bed, just a folding cot and a cheap desk. Valeria immediately dragged the butler downstairs. Why was my brother living in here? The butler stammered. Originally, he was supposed to use a guest room. Originally, Master Dorian had friends staying over. Valeria stared at him, and after they left, the butler hesitated. Master Dorian said young Master Kalen wouldn't mind staying here. How long? Silence. Valeria's expression hardened. How long? 2 years. She went pale. Later that morning, Isolde walked past and noticed Valeria still standing inside the room. What are you doing in this dump? Valeria slowly turned. Isolde wrinkled her nose. Kaelin already left. Tell the servants to throw his junk away. Valeria grabbed her arm. She dragged her inside. Look, what? Look. Isolde glanced around, then shrugged. So, Valeria stared at her. So, he lived here for 2 years. Isolde rolled her eyes. Why are you suddenly defending him? Dorian is our real brother. Kaelin is basically an outsider. For several seconds, Valeria said nothing. Then she released her. She walked outside and pulled out her phone. She wanted to find me. There was just one problem. She didn't have my number. So she called Mom. Mom, give me Kaelin's phone number. Cordelia sounded confused. Because he's injured. He's still a student. And we threw him onto the street. A pause. Then Cordelia sighed. I don't have his number. Valeria froze. You don't have your own son's phone number? Asked the butler. Silence stretched between them. Then Cordelia added, if you find him, tell him he can come home. For one brief second, Valeria felt relieved. Then her mother continued, but he has to apologize to Dorian first. Valeria closed her eyes. And that ridiculous severance agreement needs to be destroyed. We're family. Family. The word suddenly sounded disgusting. Because Cordelia wasn't worried about whether I had eaten. She hadn't asked whether I was alive. She hadn't asked whether Dad had seriously injured me. She wanted the agreement destroyed. And Valeria was beginning to understand why. My 18th birthday was approaching. So was the Tang family's planned marriage alliance with the Lee family. They didn't want their son back. They wanted their bargaining chip back. Unfortunately for them, that bargaining chip had already decided to build an empire of his own. My phone rang again before I left the hospital. Valeria. I stared at her name for half a second, then declined the call. Blocked. Mom. Dad. Isolde. Genevieve. One by one, every Tang family number disappeared into my block list. A minute later, another call came in. Unknown number. I already knew who it was. Kaelin. Valeria. I sighed. You bought another phone just to call me. She went quiet. I went into your room last night. That made me pause. I didn't know you were living like that. And now you suddenly care. Kaelin. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes. I laughed. You watched Dad beat me and called that a mistake. She couldn't answer. Can we meet? She finally asked. Just once. No. We're still family. There it was again. That word. Family. My 18th birthday is next month. I said. You think I forgot about the Lee family marriage? Valeria went silent. They don't want me back because they miss me. My voice hardened. They need me back because the marriage deal falls apart if I'm no longer a Tang. That isn't why I called. Maybe not for you. I looked at the severance agreement beside my bed. But it is for Mom. Silence. That was enough of an answer. Tell them I'm not coming back. I hung up. Then I blocked that number too. For the first time in my life, none of them could reach me. Felt better than I expected. 2 days later, I insisted on leaving the hospital. Grandpa Archie came back from the billing desk and handed me an envelope. I'll pay you back for the medical bills once I start working again. That isn't the bill. I opened it. My smile disappeared. It was a complete injury assessment. Bruised ribs, multiple contusions, soft tissue damage, clear evidence of a severe beating. I looked up. You had this done. Grandpa Archie nodded. You were unconscious when we brought you in. I didn't know who hurt you, but I knew those injuries weren't accidental. He tapped the papers. Keep them safe. You think I'll need them? Maybe. He smiled faintly. But evidence is useless if you wait until after you need it. I stared at him for a second. This old man really did think 10 steps ahead. Thank you. He waved me off. We're basically family. Stop talking like a stranger. 20 minutes later, his car stopped outside a massive estate. I looked through the window, then at him, then back at the house. Grandpa, what? You said you ran a small business. We do. This place has its own security gate. He laughed. We do all right. I decided not to ask questions. Whether he was secretly rich or completely broke didn't matter. He and Grandma Tilly had treated me better than my biological parents ever had. That evening, I remembered the old man who had loaned me $100 the night I was thrown out. I still owed him, so I followed the address he had texted me. Before I even knocked, shouting erupted from inside. "You promised me 3 years." An elderly man roared. "You said if the studio failed, you'd quit." A younger man fired back. "It's my life. You've been chasing this dream for 8 years. So what? You haven't made anything." Then, crash, something shattered. A heavy body hit the floor. "Dad." I shoved the door open and rushed inside. The elderly man had collapsed beside the table. A younger man knelt beside him, completely panicked. "His medicine." The old man gasped. I spotted a first aid box. "Move." I grabbed it, found the bottle he pointed toward, and handed it over. 10 minutes later, his breathing finally stabilized. Only then did I notice the papers scattered across the floor. Game design drafts, Ninja Fruits, Critter Cafe, Parkour Paradise, Jet Fighter Showdown. I picked up several pages. The technical notes were detailed. The ideas were painfully outdated. The younger man noticed me reading them. "What?" I looked at him. "No wonder you haven't made money in 8 years. His expression changed instantly. "Excuse me, your studio can code." I flipped another page. "But your game concepts are dead. You're a high school kid. So, you think you understand the industry better than he could imagine." In my previous life, I had watched simple mobile games explode overnight. Some had cost almost nothing to develop. Yet they made millions because they understood one thing better than everyone else: human behavior. I put the papers down. "I want to hire your studio." He stared at me. "For what?" "To make a game." He laughed. "What kind?" "Match 3. He laughed even harder. "You just called my ideas outdated. And your masterpiece is a Match 3 game." "Yes. The market has thousands of those." "I know. So what makes yours different?" "Everyone else is designing entertainment." I looked him directly in the eye. "I'm designing habit." His smile slowly faded. I explained the basic structure. A first level easy enough for a child. A second level that suddenly became frustrating. Limited retries, reward loops, timed bonuses, carefully placed purchases. He frowned. "That difficulty curve sounds terrible." "For player comfort." "Yes." "For revenue." He stopped talking. I smiled. "Exactly." For the first time, he looked at me seriously. "How much are you planning to spend?" "How much would development cost if I provide the mechanics, UI structure, levels, and monetization plan?" He thought for a moment. 28,000 for the first build. Cheap. Much cheaper than I expected. We exchanged contacts. His name was Beckett. There was only one problem. I didn't have $28,000. Not yet. The next morning, I walked into class. My best friend Jagger almost choked on his instant noodles. "Dude, where the hell have you been?" "Hospital." He froze. "What happened?" "I left the Tang family." I showed him a photo of the signed documents. His jaw dropped. "You actually did it?" "Yep. You gave up the inheritance." "All of it." He stared at me for several seconds, then gave me a thumbs up. "Good." That was all. No lecture. No asking whether I regretted giving up billions. Just good. "They treated you like trash." He added, "You should have left sooner." I smiled and sat down. Then I opened my notes and continued writing the game plan. Jagger leaned over my shoulder. "What's this? A game?" "You're making one." "Trying to." "When does development start?" "When I get money." "How much?" I held up one finger. Jagger pulled out his phone. "1 million." I blinked. I was going to say, "Give me your account number." "Jagger." "What?" "You can't just hand someone $1 million. He shrugged. "You're not someone." He looked at me like the answer was obvious. "You're my brother." My throat tightened for a second. My biological family had questioned every dollar spent on me. Jagger didn't even ask for a pitch deck. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. $1.000.000 received. I immediately grabbed a sheet of paper and wrote an IOU. Jagger frowned. "What's this?" "Business is business. You think I don't trust you?" "That's exactly why I'm writing it." I handed it to him. "If this works, you get paid back first. And if it fails," I smiled, "it won't." At lunch, I called Beckett. He answered after 3 rings. Kid, I have the money. Silence. You're serious. Send me the contract. I looked down at the game design glowing on my screen. In my previous life, an idea like this had made someone else rich. This time, I was going to use it to build an empire that belonged entirely to me. By Monday morning, Valeria had already skipped one of the most important meetings of the week. Instead, she drove straight to High School 68. She was convinced I was still there. That alone said everything. She walked into the senior teacher's office and said, "I'm looking for Kalen. I'm his older sister." One of the teachers looked up. "You're his sister?" "Yes." "Which class is he in?" Valeria froze. "Don't know." The teacher's expression immediately hardened. Then he picked up the phone. "Security. We have someone claiming to be a student's relative." Valeria's face changed. "Wait, I really am his sister." The teacher stared at her. "You don't know his class. I've been busy. You also don't know he transferred schools months ago." That stopped her cold. "What? Kalen doesn't study here anymore." Valeria walked out looking stunned. She called our mother immediately. "Mom, when did Kalen transfer?" Cordelia sounded even more confused. "He transferred." That answer hurt Valeria more than she expected. Neither of them knew. Mom quickly turned suspicious. Maybe he dropped out. He was always running around with bad influences. Valeria's chest tightened. She had just discovered I had never received an allowance. If I had also been paying my own tuition, maybe I really had been forced to quit school. She went back to the gate and paid one of the guards for information. The man looked at the cash, then lowered his voice. He transferred to Academy 32. Valeria blinked. Academy 32, one of the best schools in the city. That's impossible. The guard laughed. Kalen's grades were terrible. Who told you that? Valeria said nothing. The guard continued. He scored over 700 on the citywide mock exam. Top 100 in the entire city. Valeria stopped breathing for a second. Top 100. Even she and our other sisters had never achieved that. And I had done it after spending years in a rural school. Then being dumped into one of the weakest schools in the district. The guard shook his head. Academy 32's principal came personally to recruit him. For the first time, Valeria understood something terrifying. She didn't know her own brother at all. Not where I studied. Not how I lived. Not what I was capable of. She only knew the version of me Dorian had described. So she drove straight to Academy 32. When school ended, I was standing near the gate texting Beckett about the game. Then a pair of expensive heels stopped in front of me. I looked up. Valeria. I turned away. Kalen. She grabbed my arm. Wait. I pulled free. What do you want? Her eyes dropped toward my ribs. Are you still hurt? Let me take you to a hospital. I laughed. When Dad was kicking me, you stood there. Her face paled. When I disappeared bleeding into the street, nobody came looking. Kalen. Now I'm almost healed and suddenly you're worried. I know I was wrong. Good for you. I started walking. She followed me. Can't we just talk calmly as brother and sister? That finally made me stop. Calmly. I turned around. Was it calm when you told Dad I disrespected you and made me kneel all night? She opened her mouth. Was it calm when your documents went missing and you called me a thief without evidence? Kalen. Was it calm every time I called because I was worried about you and you told me not to waste your time? Her eyes filled with tears. I felt nothing. Save it. Then Jagger pulled up beside us on his custom superbike. He tossed me a helmet. Let's go. Valeria looked at him. Ripped shirt. Heavy chains. Motorcycle. In her eyes, he looked exactly like the delinquent Dorian had warned her about. Before I could put the helmet on, she snatched it from my hands. Stay away from my brother. Jagger blinked. What? Then she slammed the helmet onto the pavement. Crack. A deep scratch tore across the visor. Jagger stared at it. Then at her. Are you insane? Valeria pointed at him. If you drag Kalen into trouble again, I'll make sure you regret it. I slapped her. The sound cut through the noise outside the school. Valeria froze. Kalen, pick it up. She stared at me in disbelief. You hit me because of him. I pointed at the helmet. Pick. She refused. So I pulled out my phone. Jagger's expression changed. Dude, I looked at him. That helmet cost about $120,000, right? He nodded slowly. Limited edition. I called the police. Valeria looked horrified. You're calling the police on your own sister. You destroyed someone else's property. It's a helmet. Then you shouldn't have broken it. The school cameras had captured everything. At the station, Valeria didn't even deny it. She threw down a platinum card. Fine, I'll pay for it. Then she looked at Jagger. This punk is obviously trying to extort me. Jagger almost exploded. Extort you? The officer slammed the desk. Sit down. A few minutes later, the appraisal arrived. The helmet had originally cost around $120,000. Its current collector value was close to $400,000. Valeria's arrogance disappeared. The officer looked at her. This is no longer a simple dispute. She went pale. Then Jagger's identity came out. The officer glanced at Valeria. You keep calling him a street punk. He pointed toward Jagger. He's the heir to the Jang Group. Valeria froze. The Tang family had major business partnerships with the Jangs, and she had just destroyed the heir's property and insulted him in front of witnesses. She immediately called Dad. I didn't care. After giving our statements, Jagger and I left the station. We went straight to Beckett's studio. I placed the complete game plan on his desk. He read it, then frowned. Your difficulty curve is insane. I know. Level 1 is ridiculously easy. Level 2 jumps hard. Level 3 is almost cruel. Exactly. 99% of designers would never do this. I'm not designing for designers. He stared at me. I'm designing for players who refuse to admit they can't beat one more level. Beckett leaned back. You're gambling. Maybe. I slid the contract toward myself. But I'm gambling with a game I already understand. He studied me for another few seconds, then pushed over a pen. I signed. So did he. The project officially began. As I walked out of the studio, I looked back at the small team already gathering around my design documents. The Tang family still thought I was a useless kid who would eventually crawl home. They had no idea. The first brick of my new empire had just been laid. That night, Reginald finally learned how expensive Valeria's mistake had become. Dad, her voice trembled through the phone. I've been arrested. The Tang family dinner table went silent. Reginald shot to his feet. What happened? Valeria explained everything. The helmet, the police, and Jagger's identity. When she finished, Reginald's face went pale. Jagger wasn't some street punk. He was the heir to the Jang Group, one of Tang Group's most important partners. Cordelia frowned. Then have Kalen tell him to drop the charges. Reginald looked at her. Even now, they still believed I existed to solve their problems. The next morning, Cordelia and Isolde came to Academy 32. Mr. Sterling called me into the hallway. Your mother and sister are here. I showed him my registration documents. I don't want to see them. He studied my face, then nodded. Go back to class. When he returned alone, Cordelia exploded. Where is my son? Can you prove you're his mother? Mr. Sterling asked. What? Family documents. A photo together. His phone number. Silence. Neither woman could produce anything. Mr. Sterling's expression turned cold. You claim to be his family, yet you can't even call him. Cordelia stormed out, humiliated. Meanwhile, Reginald personally met Montgomery Jang to save Valeria. Montgomery gave him one condition: 40% of the Chengdu project's profits. Reginald nearly choked. That project took us years. Montgomery smiled. Then your daughter shouldn't have destroyed my son's property. Reginald had no choice. Fine. One stupid mistake had cost the Tang family a fortune. When Jagger told me, he expected me to feel guilty. I didn't. They beat me and threw me into the street. I said, why should I feel sorry? Jagger grinned. Fair enough. Several days later, Valeria was released, but the Tang family still needed me. So the next afternoon, they showed up outside my school. Reginald, Cordelia, Valeria, Dorian, and several of my sisters. Reginald approached with a painfully fake smile. Son, come home. No. Cordelia stepped forward. We know things went too far. Valeria even bowed. Kalen, I'm sorry. I looked at them. So now you remember I exist. Reginald forced himself to stay calm. Whatever happened before, we can fix it. I glanced at Dorian. He was smiling behind everyone. So I smiled too. Fine. 2 conditions. Reginald immediately asked. What? I pointed at Dorian. Throw him out permanently. Dorian's smile vanished. And transfer half of your Tang Group shares to me. Everyone froze. Dorian panicked first. But you already gave up your inheritance. I changed my mind. His face went white. That reaction told me everything. He immediately turned to Reginald. Dad, if Big Brother wants me gone, I'll leave. You can give him the shares. Valeria's eyes narrowed. The wording was strange, almost as if Dorian believed those shares belonged to him. But everyone else rushed to comfort him. Nobody is throwing you out. Kaylin is just being cruel. I laughed. They had come here pretending they wanted me back. One sentence from Dorian, and I became the enemy again. Reginald quickly pulled out a platinum card. There's $100,000 here. Cordelia brought designer clothes. Valeria offered me a new phone. My sisters handed over expensive gifts. Finally, Dorian gave me a notebook. These are my study notes. The entrance exam is coming. I accepted everything. Their expressions relaxed. Then I walked to the nearest trash can and dumped it all inside. The card, the phone, the clothes, the notes, everything. Reginald's face turned red. Kaylin, I looked back. You wanted to buy me back. I pointed at the trash. That's what your money is worth to me. Then I walked away. The next morning, Reginald was discussing the upcoming citywide mock exam. He looked at Dorian proudly. You should aim for the top 100. Dorian smiled nervously. Then Valeria spoke. Kaylin already made it. Everyone turned. She held up her phone. Kaylin Tang. Score? 708. She paused. City rank? 88. The room went silent. Dorian's fingers tightened. Then he sighed. I didn't want to tell you this. Cordelia frowned. What? Kaylin cheated. Valeria stared at him. Dorian continued calmly. Academy 32 discovered it after recruiting him. But they buried the scandal to protect their reputation. Genevieve immediately believed him. I knew those grades were fake. Reginald slammed the table. That disgrace. Only Valeria remained silent. She stared at Dorian. For the first time, she didn't automatically believe him. And Dorian had no idea that the next exam was about to expose everything. 3 days before the citywide mock exam, Valeria made Dorian repeat his promise. If Kaylin scores higher than you, what happens? Dorian smiled calmly. I'll admit I lied about him cheating. And I'll apologize publicly. Valeria stared at him. You also said you'd leave the Tang family if necessary. For the first time, his smile stiffened. Then he nodded. Of course. He was confident because he had already prepared. What none of them knew was that Dorian had obtained the exam questions in advance. On exam morning, I arrived at High School 96 and immediately spotted a Rolls-Royce outside. Cordelia was checking Dorian's supplies like he was going into surgery. Then Dorian saw me. Brother Kaylin. I kept walking. He caught up. What a coincidence. We're at the same testing center. I looked at him. Who's your brother? Cordelia's expression darkened. Kaylin, where are your manners? I laughed. You're demanding manners from someone you legally threw away. She raised her hand. Dorian immediately stopped her. Mom, don't. Kaylin is probably just upset because of the pressure. Then he smiled at me, especially after what happened with his previous scores. I narrowed my eyes. So you really are the one spreading that cheating story. Celestia stepped forward. Story. Everyone knows your grades are fake. Really, if you're actually capable, beat Dorian today. I quietly started recording on my phone. And if I do, Celestia lifted her chin. I'll come to Academy 32, kneel at the gate, and apologize to you. I smiled. Say that again. She did. Perfect. I saved the recording and walked inside. Then fate gave me an even better surprise. Dorian was assigned to my exact testing room. His seat was diagonally behind mine. During the language exam, I finished early. Dorian did too. Nothing unusual. But during mathematics, I noticed something strange. Every few minutes, Dorian tugged at his left sleeve. Look down. Right. Pull it back. Right again. His normally spotless white cuff looked gray. My eyes narrowed. So that was his trick. He had notes written inside his sleeve. I almost laughed. The guy accusing me of cheating was cheating 10 feet behind me. Instead of leaving early, I stayed until the bell. Afterward, I asked the proctor where the security office was. The cameras couldn't clearly read the writing on Dorian's sleeve, but they didn't need to. The footage clearly showed him repeatedly checking the hidden cuff before answering questions. I recorded the relevant section on my phone. Insurance. The 2-day exam ended quickly. 3 days later, Mr. Sterling walked into our classroom carrying the ranking sheet. His expression was unusually serious. The class president began reading scores from the bottom. Finally, Quentin Joe, 703. Class rank second. Everyone turned toward me. The class president swallowed. Kalen Tang. He paused. 723 points. The classroom erupted. Class rank first. Another pause. Citywide rank. 18th. For a moment, I simply sat there. 18th. Not bad. Across town, Dorian was staring at his own ranking board. 722 points. Citywide rank 19th. A great score, except directly above his name was mine. Kalen Tang. 723. Dorian had cheated. Obtained the questions early. Hidden notes on his sleeve. And still lost to me by 1 point. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. At lunch, I called Celestia. She answered angrily. What? Checked the rankings. Silence. I'm citywide 18th. I leaned back in my chair. Dorian is 19th. Her breathing became heavier. So what? So when are you coming to kneel? You cheated. I smiled. There it was. You definitely cheated. She continued. I'm going to the education bureau myself. They have cameras in every testing room. That nearly made me laugh. Please do. She hesitated. What? I said go. I struggled to keep my voice steady. Demand the footage. Watch every second. Then I hung up. Jagger looked at me strangely. Why are you smiling like a villain? Because Celestia is about to give me a gift. What gift? Justice. Celestia stormed into the education bureau that afternoon. I'm reporting academic fraud. The official looked exhausted. Student name. Kalen Tang. The footage was pulled. Celestia leaned toward the screen, waiting eagerly. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Nothing. The official finally said, your brother finished early and spent most of the remaining time sitting still. Celestia frowned. That's impossible. Check the students around him. The camera view widened. Then the official suddenly stopped. Interesting. Celestia's eyes lit up. You found him. Not him. He pointed toward another desk. A student repeatedly pulled at his left sleeve, looked down, wrote an answer, then checked it again. The official entered the seat number. His expression hardened. Seat 14. Celestia leaned closer. The name appeared. Dorian Tang. Her face went completely white. No. The footage continued. Again. Sleeve. Answer. Sleeve. Answer. Clear as day. The official turned toward her. It appears there was cheating in this room after all. Celestia couldn't speak. Dorian Tang's results will be voided, and the case will be sent to the disciplinary committee. She stumbled backward. That can't be right. The official gave her a cold look. You were the one who requested the investigation. By the time Celestia returned home, the school had already called. Dorian was kneeling in the living room. Cordelia was crying. Reginald looked furious. Mom, Dad. Panicked, Dorian begged. I wasn't feeling well. Celestia walked directly toward him. Slap. Dorian fell sideways. You liar. Everyone froze. You told us Kalen cheated. Her voice cracked. I went there to destroy him because I believed you. Dorian stared at her in horror. And just then, the front door opened. Valeria walked in carrying a thick folder. She placed it on the table. I told you I would investigate Dorian. Reginald frowned. What is that? Valeria looked directly at him. The truth. Then she pushed the folder across the table. And Dad, her voice turned ice cold. You're gonna want to sit down before you read it. Valeria pushed the folder across the table. Read it, Dad. Reginald frowned. Dorian was still kneeling on the floor after being exposed for cheating. Celestia stood beside him, furious. while Cordelia looked completely exhausted. "What is this?" Reginald asked. "A background investigation. On who?" "Dorian." The room went silent. Dorian's face changed. "Sister, why would you investigate me?" Valeria ignored him. Page 1. Reginald opened the folder. After reading only a few lines, his hands stopped moving. Cordelia noticed. "What does it say?" Valeria answered for him. 19 years ago, Dad had an affair with a woman named Landra." Cordelia slowly turned toward her husband. "What?" Reginald shot to his feet. "Valeria, enough." "No." Her voice remained calm. "You hid the affair. When Landra became pregnant, you paid her to disappear." Cordelia's face drained of color. Valeria continued. "Years later, you arranged a fake adoption and brought Dorian into our home." She looked at Cordelia. "There was never an orphanage." Cordelia stared at Reginald. "You told me we adopted him." "Cordelia, I can explain. You brought your mistress's child into my house." Reginald stepped toward her. "Listen to me." Smack. Cordelia slapped him. Hard. "You let me raise him." Dorian immediately began crying. "Mom, I didn't know anything." Valeria looked at him coldly. "Don't celebrate yet." Everyone turned toward her. She tapped the folder. "There's a second report." Reginald froze. "What second report?" "A DNA test. This time." Even Dorian stopped crying. Valeria had quietly obtained samples and sent them to a private laboratory. The conclusion was clear. Reginald Tang was not Dorian's biological father. Zero blood relation. Reginald stared at the report. "No." He read it again. Then again. "This is fake. It was tested twice." Valeria's voice cut through the room. "Landra lied to you." Reginald's lips trembled. "She was already involved with another man." Valeria looked straight at him. "Dorian is his son." Silence. Absolute silence. For years, Reginald had protected Dorian because he secretly believed Dorian was his flesh and blood. He had abandoned me for him, beaten me for him, chosen him every single time. And now, Dorian wasn't even his son. Cordelia suddenly laughed. It was a broken, bitter sound. "So this is what we destroyed our family for." Reginald's chest began rising violently. "Dorian." Dorian crawled toward him. "Dad, please. Blood doesn't matter. You raised me. Don't call me that." Dorian froze. "Dad, I said don't call me that." Reginald kicked the folder across the floor. "You knew." Dorian shook his head desperately. "I swear I didn't." But Valeria remembered his words. The way he had spoken about Tang Group shares as though they already belonged to him. The way he had manipulated every sister. The storage room. The rumors. The accusations. She no longer believed anything that came out of his mouth. "You spent years turning us against Kalen," she said. Dorian looked at her. "No. You told me he was a thief." "That's not. You said he was violent." "Sister, you told everyone his grades were terrible." Dorian's face turned white. "And when those lies stopped working, you accused him of cheating." Valeria stepped closer. "You were afraid of him." Dorian said nothing. "You knew that the moment we treated our real brother fairly, you might lose everything." Celestia stared at Dorian as if seeing a stranger. "So all those things you told us." He immediately shook his head. "I was protecting the family." Valeria laughed coldly. "No, you were protecting yourself." Reginald suddenly clutched his chest. His face turned purple. "Dad." Valeria rushed forward. Reginald collapsed onto the sofa. Within minutes, an ambulance was called. The man who had once ruled the Tang family like a king was carried out on a stretcher. And from that day, the Tang Empire began to collapse. The cheating scandal spread first. Then rumors about Dorian's real identity leaked into business circles. The Li family reacted immediately. Their proposed marriage alliance with the Tangs was cancelled. No explanation, no negotiation, just a short message. The partnership was over. Then the Jiang Group enforced the agreement Reginald had signed after Valeria's arrest. 40% of the profits from one of Tang Group's biggest projects disappeared overnight. With Reginald hospitalized and Valeria emotionally exhausted, the company lost direction. Banks became nervous. Investors started selling. Creditors appeared. Projects stalled. Tang Group stock began falling. Then falling faster. The same relatives who once crowded around Reginald at parties suddenly stopped answering his calls. Luxury cars were sold. Properties were mortgaged. Some of my sisters quietly began selling their designer bags and jewelry. And Dorian, he vanished from the mansion. The boy they once treated like a prince was thrown out almost as quickly as I had been. The difference was simple. When I left, I had nothing. When Dorian left, he had never built anything for himself. I heard about most of this from Jagger. He dropped into the chair beside me at Beckett's studio. Dude, what? Your old family is getting destroyed. I kept typing. Okay. He stared at me. That's it. What do you want me to do? Send flowers. I thought you'd celebrate. I stopped for a second, then looked at him. In my first life, maybe, first life, figure of speech. I turned back to the computer. I don't care anymore. And I meant it. The best revenge wasn't watching the Tang family fall. It was realizing their fall had nothing to do with my future. My future was sitting on the monitors in front of me. Popstar frenzy. Beckett walked over. We have a problem. I looked up. What? If your predictions are right and traffic spikes the way you expect, our servers could collapse. They won't. He frowned. You sound very confident. I rewrote the back end. You what? I turned the laptop toward him. Database restructuring, server optimization, load balancing, automatic scaling. Beckett stared at the code, then at me. You did this last night. You're still in high school. You keep saying that like it's a disability. He ignored the joke. This is professional level infrastructure. It needs to be. I leaned back, because launch day is going to hurt. Beckett crossed his arms. You really believe this thing will explode? Yes. How sure? I thought about my previous life. I remembered how millions of players had spent hours on games built around the exact same psychological loops. Easy reward, frustration, near victory, one more try, one small payment, then another. I smiled, sure enough that I already increased server capacity. Jagger leaned over. And if you're wrong, then I lose money. And if you're right, I looked at the launch countdown on the screen. Less than a week. Then everything changes. Outside that room, the Tang family was watching its empire crumble. Inside, mine was almost ready to begin. 1 week before the entrance exams, Popstar Frenzy officially launched. Beckett barely slept the night before. Neither did Jagger. At midnight, the three of us sat inside the studio staring at the live dashboard. 10 downloads. 50. 300. Jagger leaned back. Well, Beckett looked at me. You still confident? I nodded. Wait, by morning, downloads had passed 10,000. That afternoon, 50,000. Then social media discovered the game. Players complained about the difficulty. They posted screenshots. They challenged their friends. They swore they were deleting it, then opened it again 5 minutes later. Exactly as I had predicted. On the second night, Beckett ran into the office. Kalen. I turned around. We're trending. Jagger jumped out of his chair. No way. Beckett shoved the tablet toward us. Popstar Frenzy had exploded across multiple gaming communities. The comments were hilarious. This game is evil. I've been stuck on level 7 for 3 hours. Who designed this thing? I hate it. 5 stars. Jagger stared at me. You're a psychopath. I smiled. A profitable psychopath. Within 72 hours, the game went viral. By the end of the first week, daily revenue from ads and microtransactions had crossed $300,000. Beckett sat in front of the financial dashboard without speaking. Finally, he whispered, I spent 8 years trying to make one successful game. I looked at him, and now, he laughed. Now a high school kid just saved my studio. No, I shook my head. You built it. I just knew what players wanted. I immediately paid Jagger back. Principal. Profit share, everything. He stared at the transfer notification. Dude, I gave you that money because I trusted you. That's why you get paid first. Then I bought Grandpa Archie and Grandma Tilly premium medical coverage and the best massage chair I could find. Grandma called me the second it arrived. Kalen, why did you waste money on this? It's not a waste. You're still a student. I can afford it. Grandpa Archie laughed in the background. Stop yelling at him. Tilly. Let the boy spoil us. I smiled. For the first time in 2 lives, making money felt good. Not because I could buy expensive things, because I could finally repay the people who had loved me when I had nothing. While my life moved forward, the Tang family kept collapsing. Reginald remained weak after his hospitalization. The marriage alliance was gone. Major investors pulled out. Creditors began circling. Luxury cars disappeared from the driveway one by one. Then properties were sold. The sisters who once mocked my cheap clothes started selling their designer bags just to cover expenses. Dorian was gone. Nobody knew exactly where he had ended up. I didn't ask. I had an exam to prepare for. When the national entrance exam arrived, I walked into the testing center feeling calmer than I had in years. No family drama, no fear, no need to prove anything. I simply answered the questions. A month later, Mr. Sterling called me. "Kalen." His voice sounded strange. "What happened? You need to come to school." There was a pause. Then he laughed. "Because every elite university in the country is calling me." My score, 742 out of 750. Highest in the city, highest in the province. I stared at the number for several seconds. Jagger saw my screen, then screamed so loudly the entire room turned around. Provincial top scorer. Beckett nearly spilled his coffee. Grandpa Archie called everyone he knew. Grandma Tilly cried. "Era sent me a message. I knew you could do it." I looked at those words for a long time. This was what pride was supposed to feel like. Not pressure, not control, not being useful to someone, just people being happy because I was happy. Graduation arrived soon after. I walked through the gates of Academy 32 carrying my diploma. Grandpa Archie and Grandma Tilly were waiting beside Jagger's new car. Era stood with them holding a huge bouquet. Jagger waved. "Top scorer. Move your legs." I laughed and started toward them. Then I saw another group standing nearby. The Tang family. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize them. Reginald looked 10 years older. He leaned heavily on a cane. Cordelia had lost the arrogance she once wore like a crown. My sisters stood behind them in ordinary clothes. No luxury cars, no bodyguards, no smug expressions, just exhaustion. Cordelia stepped forward first. "Kalen." I stopped. Her eyes filled with tears. "We saw your results." She tried to smile. "We're so proud of you." I said nothing. Reginald slowly approached. "Son." His voice trembled. I was wrong. I looked at him calmly. "The company is gone." He continued. "We lost almost everything." Then he lowered his head. "The same man who once kicked me while I lay on the floor. Please come home." Cordelia began crying. "We can start over." Reginald nodded desperately. "You have money now. Connections. Talent." There it was. Even at the end, they still saw what I could provide. Not who I was. "You're our only hope," he said. I looked at them. Strangely, I felt no anger, no satisfaction, no desire to insult them. They simply didn't matter anymore. "I already told you." Reginald looked up. "I'm an orphan." Cordelia's face crumpled. "Kalen." I pointed behind me. Grandpa Archie, Grandma Tilly, Era, Jagger. All four were waiting with smiles on their faces. "My family is over there." Nobody from the Tang family spoke. I turned around. Cordelia called after me. "Son." I kept walking. Jagger opened the car door. Grandma Tilly hugged me. Grandpa Archie slapped my shoulder proudly. Era handed me the flowers. "Ready." I looked back at Academy 32, then toward the city ahead. I got into the car. Jagger hit the gas. The Tang family disappeared behind us. I never looked into the rearview mirror. In my first life, I died begging them to love me. In this life, I walked away before they could destroy me. They chose Dorian. They lost everything. I chose myself and built an empire.